spiritual guidance like versus the ego. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the true self, the spiritual self, the soul, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, has no agenda. It's not interested in being right. It's not interested in winning. It's not interested in you being better than everybody else. It's interested in you being better than yourself. It's interested in you succeeding the things that you came here to accomplish and experience in this lifetime. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is the true self is a voice and an awareness that cares nothing, it cares about nothing except for your well-being. That's really the beginning and the end of it. And whatever that means to you in the moment is going to be different. So the higher self will always meet you where you are and simultaneously ask you to go just a little bit further. The ego is all about competition. It's probably going to use fear or threats or intimidation to motivate you. Or if you don't do this, then this bad thing is going to happen. You don't want to be like that, do you? If you don't, then you should do this. So the ego is punitive. The ego probably sounds like an old teacher or a parent or Sister Mary, whatever her name was. It's going to sound like an authority figure that is going to get you or punish you.
Hey, beautiful soul. I'm Hayden Crawford, your host and soul guide here at the Dreamtime Academy, a cosmic mystery school for starseeds and truth seekers, just like you, who are looking at rediscovering your inner wisdom for a life of more freedom, joy, and purpose. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel and click the bell for future notifications so that you never miss one of my podcast episodes of either the Numerology Show or Cosmic Conversations, or indeed some of my transmissions, which will help to activate the next layer of your spiritual awakening. I'm the author of the Starseed Ascension Guide and the Cosmic Family Oracle cards, both designed to help you to reconnect to your higher self and remember who you truly are. If you want to dive deeper, we have an online membership portal called the Oversoul Codex Collective, where you can join a like-minded group of starseeds from all across the planet as you delve into courses in numerology, colour therapy, and cosmic consciousness as well. You can also support this channel by becoming a member, either as a soul spark or a codex keeper. If you're feeling the call to join us together in person, then we also host consciousness expanding retreats in Perth, where you can really start to experience this incredibly immersive work within community environment. Once again, your support really helps this channel to grow. So thank you for joining this team of galactic light workers from all across the planet, helping to expand consciousness and bring light into the darkness. So welcome to Cosmic Conversations. Today, I'm deeply honoured to welcome a true soul pioneer, Amar Energy, energy intuitive, author and spirit guide. Now, with over 13 years of wisdom, Amar specializes in translating lofty spiritual concepts into grounded, practical tools that foster inner balance, personal power, and profound transformation. His messages have guided countless souls, and today we're tuning into that powerful energy. Let's dive into how Amar makes the mystical tangible and learn how we can all step more fully into our sovereignty. So welcome, Amar. It's lovely to have you on today's show.
I'm so happy to be here, Hayden. Thank you for having me. And I'm mesmerized by all the colors behind you. I can't stop looking at that.
Oh, wow. Do you know what? You're probably one of the only people that's noticed in all the conversations that I had. People either see them or they don't see them. It's really interesting. So I can tell that you're kind of attuned to the same frequencies, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So your work bridges the mystical with the practical, doesn't it? How did your journey into becoming an energy intuitive begin? And how did you discover this unique teaching style?
Well, it's always been something that I've been connected to in terms of, I guess, what you would call a gift or a spiritual ability. I've always had that. And I just assumed as a child, I think like most children, I just thought, well, this is how everyone sees the world. This is just how it is. And then come to find out, no, actually, it's not how everyone sees the world, or at least the people that see the world that way aren't usually vocal and upfront about it. I grew up in a small town in Wyoming in the 70s and 80s. And so the conversations we're having now, which for a lot of people are quite commonplace, this was not the case where I grew up. So I think around the age of, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, I started to see like, oh, okay, this is not how everyone sees the world. Actually, most people don't like it when I deliver the information that I have to them, because most adults are really invested in hiding the things that I can see. So I just started shutting it off. And then, fast forward into my 20s and man, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, that's really a great way to make all those voices quiet and to numb everything. I mean, I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to belong. If someone had told me from a very young age, like, hey, Amar, you didn't come here to fit in, that is an exercise in futility, just give it up now, that would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of energy. But I always had these gifts. And then, really starting in, I would say, in the mid 90s, things started to happen and things got strange. And I would have these experiences that would literally stop me in my tracks, but I would always manage to explain them away or justify them and kind of forget about them. And then in 2012, I finally had a massive experience that really rattled my cage. And it was unmistakably clear at that point that I was kind of out of excuses, that if I was going to do this work, that now was the time to do it, or just continue down the path of misery and suffering. And so I just gave in. And it wasn't probably a year and a half later, I had a practice that was thriving and it just kind of happened. It
So,
just kind of
what
happened.
was that 2012 awakening experience? Do you mind sharing it?
No, I can share it and I'll abbreviate it because it's quite long. But so in 2005, I'll back up a little bit because this is relevant. In 2005, I'd been living in New York for about 7 years, was at the end of my rope, had lost my apartment, was like $40,000 in debt, didn't know where I was going to live, what I was going to do. I ended up staying with some friends, sleeping on my mattress in their living room floor. And one day they had all gone to work and I was particularly distraught. And I just was overwhelmed, like my life was crashing in on me. And I said, I don't know what to do. I need help. And I heard a voice. It was not in my head. It was a voice in the room that said, you do realize it doesn't have to be this hard. You can go back to Seattle if you want to. I lived in Seattle previously. 2 weeks later, everything I owned had been sold. I had a plane ticket to Seattle and I got back to Seattle. Fast forward to 2012, and in 2005, when I went back to Seattle, I started down the spiritual path, but I wasn't ready. So I ran. And then in 2012, I was living in Los Angeles. Same thing, like life looked great on paper. A million people would have given anything for the life that I had if they had just seen it on paper, that whole story. And I was in my apartment, same place, miserable, unhappy, just didn't want my life. Like, was like, please, God, just take me in my sleep. Like, I just don't want to wake up. So I decided to paint my apartment because what do you do when you're depressed? You redecorate. And so I was painting my bathroom, and literally, as I put the roller on the final wall, I heard the voice again, same exact voice, said, you do realize as soon as you finish painting this apartment, it's going to be time to leave, don't you? And that was it. I lost it. Like it just all broke open, tears just flooding, pouring out of me. Besides the fact that I had just heard the exact same voice in the exact same moment, essentially, as I had 7 years prior. And I just said, okay, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but clearly you know something that I don't know. So I'll do whatever you want. Get me back to Seattle, get me a job, get me an apartment, and I will not budge. I won't move until you say so, and I'll do whatever I need to do. 2 weeks later, against every conceivable odd, I was back in Seattle and had a job in an apartment, and it just kind of took off from there.
Oh my God, that's amazing. It sounds so interesting. Do you have any idea of who that voice is now, now that you've had chance to
I
reflect?
I think it was just me. I think it was just the higher self. I think it was just my expanded self knowing, I mean, who knows you better than your higher self, the being that chose you. And I just knew from that level that if I don't completely blow his mind, he's going to explain it away again. And I knew in that moment, from my human perspective, that if I said no one more time, I would have been dead in a year, or at least have been so miserable I might as well have been dead. So it was just one of those moments where, I mean, I had a choice, but I didn't have a choice.
Hmm.
Like I just had to say yes.
You just had to say yes and turn up. So you've actually said that spiritual awakening isn't a special club, it's part of the human experience. So
Yeah.
what does awakening really mean to you, Amar?
I think awakening is the collapse of who I had to become so that who I was, who I am, could emerge. I think we as humans, there's that saying, I buy things I don't want with money I don't have to impress people I don't like. I think that's kind of the MO for every human that's ever lived up until like today, right? Like we're so invested. I'll speak for myself. I was so invested in the facade that I thought everyone needed to see or that I thought I had to project and present to be liked, to be loved, to be included, to be successful, you name it. We're given, I think, this very, very narrow set of parameters, and we're told either explicitly or it's implied that if you want to be a happy, successful human, these are the things you need to do. And that leaves us about this much wiggle room, really. And I think awakening is the collapse of that. I think the awakening is just the illusion beginning to shred at the seams. And if you're paying attention, and it took me a while to finally pay attention. But if you're paying attention, it's just inevitable. To me, it's like puberty. It's just something that you will eventually go through.
Yeah, it's part of it, isn't it? You can't really avoid it. It's going to happen to you whether you like it or not. And sometimes if you
Yeah.
don't listen, it then slaps you across the face. You get run over by a Mack truck or you have a near-death experience or whatever, just to
Yeah.
wake you up into the shedding of that identity. And it's interesting because I feel like that's been quite a major theme. I'm a numerologist, and of course, we're in a universal year nine, which is about completion. And a lot of people are shedding identities at the moment. I had an interesting experience over Lionsgate. I know that you're really big into Lionsgate as well, and you work with the Galactic Councils, etc. But we'd gone on a trip to Europe over this period, and my suitcase didn't show up at Toulouse Airport when we arrived, and I was like, "Oh, this is really inconvenient." 5 days later, it was couriered to the house we were staying in. I was like, "Oh, bonus! I've got my clothes for my cruise." And then when we flew back to Perth, I was like, "Oh, wouldn't it be weird if like my suitcase didn't turn up?" I was thinking that'll never happen. I've never lost my suitcase before, and sure enough, the suitcase didn't show up. I still haven't got it. This was a month ago that I arrived back. And I was like, well, what's this all about then? I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious. This is the shedding of identity. It's the old baggage, the old, the way I was dressing myself, literally. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And it's so interesting because I think awakening, from my perspective, is almost like you go through a series of mini ones, don't you? Sometimes people have a big one and it blows their mind, but other times there can be various different segments to that journey. And I know that you're sort of going through another one now, aren't you? Really, because you just moved to Sedona. Could you explain a little bit more about, this version, this stage of your awakening?
Well, I mean, to be determined. Like what I know is that this is the beginning of a massive expansion for me, for my work, for visibility. It's I think one of those things that a year from now I'm going to look back and say it took me 15 years to become an overnight success. I feel it in my bones. It's in my gut. Like I just know this is the level up. Prior to a couple of months ago, and I'm also very aware that not everyone gets an invitation to come to Sedona. Sedona is one of those hot spots on the planet. as anybody who's, I would say, most likely if someone's watching this podcast, they're aware of what Sedona holds and the magic that is here. These spots on the planet, if you can't hang, they're going to spit you out. These spots will chew you up and spit you out because energetically, if you are not prepared to embody what is here, it will blow you open. So the past 6 years, I've been living with family, sister and brother-in-law, mother and stepdad, and then my father, all, sort of shuttling between those three areas. But the past 6 years have been all about clearing family karma. When I tell you that the past 6 years have been an exercise in endless frustration, that would be an understatement to say, because it's basically been 6 years with family, no coming up for air. It is time to balance all of that karma, untie all of those tethers so that the next phase of my life is free and clear. Like I finally am at this point in my life where I have no unresolved stuff with family. God forbid if they were to all leave this planet tomorrow, I would be sad, but I wouldn't have any regrets. And that I think was kind of my goal without even realizing it, was to get to that point where I feel at peace with myself and my family and our relationship. And I do. And one day this is when I was living at my father's. So this is about 3 or 4 months ago. I knew that my time there was getting ready to end because he had just been accepted into an assisted living facility. So I knew that things were going to start moving and moving really fast. At the time, I thought Santa Fe was where I was going in my mind. That's where I was going next and had been talking about for a couple of years. And so one day I just said, okay, Spirit, I want to receive some insight about where's next. If it's not Santa Fe, that's fine. I'm not attached. I just would love to check in because it's been a minute since I've had an idea of what the plan is. So I went into meditation, started my journey, and then about 5 minutes in, just the word Sedona, like trail, credits on a movie screen, just like rolled through my awareness. And I was like, are you kidding? Sedona? Really? Like that's where I'm going? And at the time I was telling a joke. I was like, isn't the equivalent of like an American psychic going to Sedona the equivalent of like a psychic in England moving to Stonehenge? Like it just seems a little on the nose, or like some Egyptian person deciding to move to Cairo so they can be closer to the pyramids. Like it just seemed silly to me, honestly. But I said, hey, I love Sedona. I wouldn't say no. I just didn't think it was an option. And so Sedona just kept coming into my awareness, and I kept like waiting for a plan, waiting for details. Nothing was coming. And then, like, literally one day I was like, there's no reason for me to be here. I can leave. I set my itinerary, planned my route to drive. And Spirit said, all you have to do is show up in Sedona. Everything else will be taken care of. Just get there. And I did. And 3 days later, I had an apartment. It literally just fell into my lap. I was the first person to respond to the ad, the first person to view the place, the first person to live here. Like it just happened. And so here I am.
I love that. This is how it works, isn't it? When you're in alignment, everything is easy. When you're out of alignment, everything goes wrong. And it's
Forget it.
just annoying, isn't it, when you're out of
Yeah.
alignment? But it sounds great that you're leveling up to the next
Yeah.
stage. I mean, you already
Yeah.
have a very successful YouTube channel. It's great. You've been doing it for years. You've got over 800 videos on there. And
Yeah.
you're almost like you're about to springboard into the highest version of yourself, I think, which is amazing to witness. And I think that for those people that are watching that maybe don't know about Sedona and the magic that's there, could you briefly explain, what that is and how you feel being in that environment now?
Yeah, well, I think if you just do a search, Sedona vortex, you will find like the energy centers, the vortices that are here are very real. The terrain, just the landscape and the topography. I've never lived in the desert before. I've lived in the mountains, but I mean, I call them the guardians, these massive rock formations. There's, Cathedral Rock is right there, Pyramid Rock is right behind me. I can literally see them both from my living room, from my front yard. And they're two of like the major iconic formations here in Sedona. There's a whole bunch of them. There's Coffee Pot Rock and Thunder Mountain and Bell Rock. I mean, there's a million of them, but they all surround like this basin. You're kind of in this little canyon and surrounded by all of this amazing, amazing energy in these formations. And I'm, a 5 minute walk to Oak Creek, which is a major destination here in Sedona. It's also a really powerful spot. Sedona, I believe, is just one of those places on the planet where energy is very concentrated. And it's one of those places that historically, the tribes that have called this land home far beyond or far long before, Americans got here. Um, it's been a sacred place. It's one of those places you can feel it, like it's just in the air. And the first, what, 2 weeks, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow that I've been in my apartment. I've spent the majority of my time sleeping. Like my body and my energy field are going through another massive recalibration as I'm just acclimating to the energies here. But it's just one of those magical spots. It's one of those magical spots. Are you familiar with the author Freddie Silva?
Oh, I've interviewed him on
Oh,
this
you have.
show. Yeah.
I absolutely love him. I absolutely love Freddie Silva. And so you're familiar with his work, and he talks about, I believe it's in The Hidden Lands, or I can't remember one of his books, but he talks about basically how energy shows us where it is. If you look on the planet, anywhere that there's a massive outcropping, like a mountain or terrain that rises up way, way above, like, the city or the landscape, that is the energy pushing the terra firma to the surface. So when you're looking for energy hotspots, you look for these big formations and these big mountains. And if we think about, Mount St. Helens, if we think about Mount Shasta, if we think about the Himalayas, if we think about, Sedona, like all of these places that are major hotspots have something significant about the terrain that sets them apart. So I think even if you had no comprehension or concept of anything like energy or telluric currents, you would still look around a place like Sedona and be awed just because it's like living on another planet. Like it doesn't even look like a place that humans should inhabit. It's quite magical. It's really
Wow.
special.
Well, it's interesting because I was having a chat with Sasha Stone a few days ago now, and he was talking about how dragon energy, is almost the mountains and the rocks are almost dragons that have fossilized or whatever, or the
Mhm.
vibration of the dragon. And he also spoke about, the place where Steven Spielberg shot Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That I can't remember the name of it, but he said that's an
Devil's
old
Tower.
tree stump, the
Yeah.
giant trees, and
Yeah.
Uluru as well. So I'm wondering, as you were saying that, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if those amazing rock formations in Sedona it's ancient dragon energy.
It could be. It could be. I mean, I've worked with dragons. I haven't in several years, but they're always close by and I do work with them. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a connection.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it?
It
So,
is.
okay, so creating coherence is a reoccurring theme in your work. So, what
Mm.
does coherence look like, and how can someone begin moving forward with it in daily life?
That's such a good question. I think coherence to me, in its simplest terms, is what is happening in here is matched and met by what is happening out here. And coherence is there's no tension or friction between the two, right? So what I'm experiencing internally just kind of flows out into the external world around me, and everything that I experience is merely an emanation or a manifestation of what's happening internally. I mean, it's that way anyway, but I think coherence is when you feel that resonance, that there is no discord between the internal and the external worlds.
I love that. And how do you help people to reconnect with their center? How do you do that? What do you have specific tools and techniques?
I do have a couple of tools. One of the tools that I use is called the emotional architecture, which is something that about 10 years ago my guides bestowed upon me. And that's a really good way. That's a foundational piece of my work is, and the idea behind the emotional architecture is the premise that the only reason humans choose anything is because of what we think the state of being will be on the other side of that choice, right? I choose the car, not because I want a car, but because I feel successful, because I feel fancy, because I feel attractive, attractive because it represents choice, because it gives me freedom. Same thing. I marry this person. Yeah, sure, they're attractive and kind and all that, but they make me feel smart. They make me feel, attractive. They make me feel safe. They make me laugh. So if we're only choosing something because of what we think the state of being we will arrive at on the other side of, then just put the state first. So that is a foundational piece of my work is all you want is a way of being. So be that now, and then everything around you will eventually catch up. And I think that really my work always, 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 no matter what, my work points the client back to themselves. I think that people such as me who are in this privileged position to guide people and lead people and assist people have a duty to be a temporary mechanism in somebody's life. I don't want dependence. I don't want, if someone sees me, like I just saw a client this morning, we've worked together for over 10 years, but it's like once every 2 or 3 years we do a session together. That's lovely, but I'm not interested in someone that feels like they have to see me every month in order to be okay. I came into this life with a few switches flipped on, but everybody can do what I do. Everybody has their own mechanism to connect to what we could just call the non-physical self. And my work always begins and ends with pointing you back to yourself. And the only way you're going to find your center is by going in and starting to excavate.
Hmm.
You have to be willing to go in and face yourself. You have to be willing to do some digging. You have to be willing to be accountable to yourself and say, this is not working. I say I want this thing, but then I keep doing that thing. So either I have to stop doing that thing or I have to want something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And your
You
book,
have to
Notes from
decide.
the Higher Self, is a collection of awakening messages, isn't it? So, how did
Mhm.
writing your book affect your own evolutionary path?
You mean this book?
That book.
I just so happen to have a copy in my desk drawer. It's an interesting thing. The book, what I didn't realize it was a book until hindsight. It was a period of a few years where I was just channeling messages from the higher self, presenting them on my Facebook page at the time I had a Facebook account. And I just thought, wow, these are really powerful messages. This is really amazing information. Now, oh, and it just so happens that I'm going through the exact thing that this message is speaking to. And then it was what, 2 years ago that I decided it was time to start writing my book. And then bam, it was just like, oh, I already have the book. I just have to transcribe all of these messages, put them in order chronologically, format it, figure out a way to publish it. And that's what I did. So it had already been written. And I think it was less than a month that I went from the idea of publishing a book to having it published. Another one of those things of like, when it's time, nothing can stop you.
That's it. Yeah, it's so true. It took me 8 years to write my book. I just kept on procrastinating with it. But it's sort of like when the time was right, it happened. And I think that there's always the right time. And I guess in a world full of noise, how can this listeners really truly discern their true spiritual guidance from the distractions or spiritual bypassing?
Yeah. Spiritual guidance, like versus the ego. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that the true self, the spiritual self, the soul, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, has no agenda. It's not interested in being right. It's not interested in winning. It's not interested in you being better than everybody else. It's interested in you being better than yourself. It's interested in you succeeding the things that you came here to accomplish and experience in this lifetime. So I think the first thing to acknowledge is the true self is a voice and an awareness that cares nothing, it cares about nothing except for your well-being. That's really the beginning and the end of it. And whatever that means to you in the moment is going to be different. So the higher self will always meet you where you are and simultaneously ask you to go just a little bit further. The ego is all about competition. It's probably going to use fear or threats or intimidation to motivate you. Or if you don't do this, then this bad thing is going to happen. You don't want to be like that, do you? If you don't, then you should do this. So the ego is punitive. The ego probably sounds like an old teacher or a parent or Sister Mary, whatever her name was. It's going to sound like an authority figure that is going to get you or punish you. Um, I think that the mistake that we often make is that the higher self, the true self, is not interested in whether or not you think you're ready. It is not interested in whether or not you think you're comfortable. It is interested in you discovering and remembering your true potential. So it will often gently, sometimes forcibly, kind of nudge you out of the nest. It will nudge you out of the comfort zone. The ego, on the other hand, will choose comfort every single time. It will choose familiar every single time. It will choose, oh, just open a bag of chips and put on Netflix and roll over and just call it a day. You'll be fine, right? That's the ego. So if it makes the ego uncomfortable, it's really, really good for the soul. That's
That's
kind of how
great.
you can know.
That's great, isn't it? It's great. So if you feel uncomfortable, it's good for the soul. So feel the fear and do it anyway. It goes
Yeah,
right back to that, doesn't it?
exactly. Feel awkward, feel cringe, and do it anyway. You don't have to have any idea what you're doing, just do it anyway. That was me on my way to Sedona. I literally, aside from I have an Airbnb on this date and 3 days to get there, I knew nothing. I know one person, aside from the people that I've met since I got here, I knew one person in this entire town. So I just said, okay. I mean, what else am I going to do? Right? It's just you have to, at some point, you just have to give in to yourself.
Mm, you really do. It's amazing because I mean my own journey as well has been very much constant leaps of faith from emigrating to Australia. This was 15 years ago, and we were speaking before we kind of got on today's podcast about how we never really stop sort of taking those leaps, and myself and my husband we're ready to take the next leap in ourselves. So we're almost thinking about moving back to Europe, but settling somewhere in the south of France. And it feels awkward and it does feel uncomfortable. And there's all the, there's the dogs to think about. And there's all of this stuff that I know that's ahead, learning French.
Yeah.
But, then you think about the alternative. It's like, well, it just seems less exciting just to stay in the house that we've been in for the last 6 years and to continue like that. It feels like, oh, it'll be all right, but it's safe and it's
Yeah.
easy and but it's not testing us. So this is what you're talking about, isn't it? It's like if you get that fuel in your belly and you're like, oh, can you imagine what it'll be like living there and being able to speak French fluently and being able to access all of Europe easily and not be stuck in Perth, which is miles away from anywhere. It's the most isolated
Yeah.
city on the whole world.
Wow.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a million platitudes, right? The old ways won't open new doors, and old behaviors won't create new patterns or new habits, and all of those things. But it's true. I mean, if we think of life, life is always in a state of expansion. Life, certainly it's cyclical, and we know that, summer comes before fall and comes before winter and comes before spring, but none of those seasons are the same. There are things we can rely upon as like, oh, the days will be longer and it might be warmer or whatever, but life never stops expanding. Life never stops growing. Not once has life ever said, no, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Let's just stop everything. It can all die and shrivel on the vine. So I think and to really accept the fact that we are life itself. We are not separate. Nothing is separate from anything else. It's all part of this really amazing, intricate, beautiful mechanism, and we're a part of that. And so, if we allow life to move through us uninhibited, we must acknowledge the fact that it wants to grow, it wants to expand, it wants to move. I go to the creek, Oak Creek down here, less than 10-minute walk. Really, really beautiful spot. Like amazing big flat sandstone rocks that you can lay out on and, dangle your feet in the creek. And it's stunning and beautiful birds everywhere. And you're right by Cathedral Rock, which is just breathtaking. And, it's that, I believe it was Aristotle or Socrates, one of the two, saying, you can go to the same place and the same river every single day for your whole life, but it's never the same river twice. Like it's always moving. There's always something new, and it may appear to be the same, and you standing at the bank of the river may be the same experience, but it's not. It's always different. And as a very, very typical Virgo, I appreciate familiarity and routine. It's a very earth sign thing to embrace is this is where I go for my cheeseburger, this is where I go for my Thai food, this is where I get my groceries. And I do like to have those things always in place. But who cares? So what if I'm inconvenienced for a couple of weeks finding my new favorite grocery store? So what if I am, in an empty apartment and sleeping on a mattress on the floor and have a desk and a chair and that's all I have right now and, kitchen stuff from Goodwill? Who cares? It's fine. Like we hold ourselves back when life is constantly encouraging us to go and to try and to expand and to take risks, and it's just this vibrant, nonstop thing. And we are so quick to try to divorce ourselves from that. We are so quick to try to take ourselves out of that flow and know I want my stable little corner of the world. And I understand that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if life is knocking at the door, it's only a matter of time before you have to answer. And if you don't, then the house is just going to collapse, right? It's like what is that verse in the Bible? First, God throws a pebble, then a stone, then a rock, then a boulder. Like those messages aren't going to stop. So, to your point, if Spirit is saying, hey, get your ass to France, it's going to happen one way or another,
Yeah,
right? By hook or by crook.
yeah, you know that. Now, I was watching your energy forecast for August, and it was very interesting because you were talking about, the Starseed purpose and mission, and you were talking about how, yeah, we all know what our purpose is, but it's getting clarity on the mission. So, do you feel that you're very, very clear on your mission now? And if so, what is that mission moving forward? What does this next wave look like for you, Amar?
That is such a good question, and I don't have a completely succinct answer. I am in a state of becoming, is what I can say definitively. And the work that I have done up until this point has been really valuable, and I know I will continue to build upon it. But I think that I find myself being guided, and the clients that I'm working with recently more and more are about people who are at a threshold, people who are at a fork in the road and are having to like muster up some big courage. And I am just a person who has been able, I've moved 40 something times in my life. I've had almost 20 jobs. Like I've change is something I'm incredibly familiar with. And maybe that's part of what I'm doing next is helping people to remember the truth of who they are and know that change is inherent in your DNA. Like it's part of what you are. So I think my work, aside from the fact that it's just going to reach more people and have a wider audience, I think it's really dialing in on people just reclaiming themselves. Like, I am the one who's in charge of my life. I am the one who is creating my experience. I am the one who created everything that I've experienced, good, good, bad, and indifferent. And if I don't like it, I can look to myself to change it. If I love it, I can congratulate myself for having created it. I think we have just gotten so lost collectively, and we are looking for anyone or anything outside of us to tell us what to do, where to go, who to trust. And the reason that we can't find it is because this is the phase in our collective human experience where we realize, oh, it's in here. Oh, the thing I've been looking for was literally in my pocket the whole time. Oh, the version of me that I'm so desperate to become has always existed and it's just been waiting for me to turn and realize that it's there and always has been. So I think that my work is going to get much simpler because it is quite simple. I know simple isn't easy. And I'm also no longer interested in doing heavy lifting. I think that, historically, a lot of my work was helping people do their emotional labor. I would go into their lives, meet them in their chaos, and would somehow manage to maintain my own center within their chaos. Now, I am not a bridge, I am a lighthouse. I will no longer come to you. Now you come to me. The door is open. There's the path. If you can make it to the top, then we can work together. If you can't, then you're not ready for me.
That's a brilliant way of describing it. And do you know what? I really resonate with that because I feel like that's where I've been going through on my own, sort of healing journey. I've been doing this now for since I left corporate, about 12 years ago, and I've done all of that stuff that you're talking about, and it is quite exhausting, for people that are still stuck in that victim mindset, and doing the inner child stuff. It's more about, yeah, being the beacon. I love that. It's a great analogy. It's moving away completely from that sort of role or that archetype of the rescuer in a way, isn't it? It's not that's not your responsibility. Showing people that how they can be is often the best way to influence them.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, I think when we can live as an example of what is possible, when you claim yourself, own yourself, rescue yourself. Because look, yes, okay, ayahuasca, cold plunges, drum circles, vision quests, climbing to the top of whatever mountain, sitting in a cave, like all of that is going to be useful to a degree, but it's not going to save you. It's not going to rescue you. It's not going to make it okay. It's not going to give you the answers. All of that stuff and those spiritual experiences, they teach you one thing: how to come back to yourself. And if they're not, then you're moving in the wrong direction. So anything that you are using as a mechanism for the expansion of your consciousness, if in the end it does not arm you with a deeper sense of who you are and the tools that you have available to you and the responsibility that you have for all of your life, then it's a waste of your time. So I think at some point, we kind of get sick of the amusement park, and the amusement park is wonderful. My God, I love those otherworldly magical experiences of like, oh my God, this being that I saw or the orb in the sky or whatever. That's all wonderful, but that's not why we came. We didn't come to spend time in the amusement park. You go to the amusement park to have the otherworldly experience that blows your mind so that then you can go back to the real world and exemplify this is what it looks like when someone is spiritually responsible and accountable.
mm,
And I think that's why I'm here anyway, is to
mm.
show people what's possible when you finally get sick of your own shit.
Yeah. And it's wonderful that you've been able to do all of that clearing up of your karmic ancestral lineage stuff, to get to this place of realization. And so, what techniques do you personally use? Are you a meditator, or what do you do?
I do meditate. I journal a lot. I also like verbal processing is a huge thing for me. So I do a lot of voice notes. I do a lot of putting in my earbuds and walking, just talking out loud to the universe, to God, to my, and I use the earbuds. I say it's hiding the crazy. So anybody who sees me walking around talking to myself doesn't know I'm not on the phone. So I do that. I think internal family systems is a practice that I was really leaning into for a long time, and the parts work. People can find, that online, the parts work. I think it's Bruce Lipton. But his work of, identifying and personifying these stubborn or disintegrated parts of ourselves and bringing them into the current narrative and bringing them into the now moment, I found to be incredibly powerful. For me, it's really just about conscious and deliberate focus on where my mind goes, where my energy goes. I'm a really powerful intellect. And so it's easy for me to get stuck in my head, and it's easy for me to get hooked into this idea that I have to have a logical, rational understanding of something in order for it to be effective. I think to a degree, I just like to understand things. But in terms of what works for me, lately it has been moving into the unknown. Lately, it has been kind of relishing when I don't have the answers or the plan. And for me, the biggest shift was really putting my faith and my trust in self. Like really deciding that if I'm going to do this, I'm speaking of the move to Sedona, there is no plan B. And I had the conversation with spirit and self that, a couple days after I got the message that Sedona was where I was going. And I said, okay, I'm doing it, but I want to make it perfectly clear there is no plan B. So either this succeeds or I live in my car. Like I'm out of family to live with. There's no one left for me to crash on their sofa, and I don't want to. I'm done with halfway measures. And I said, I will show up at 100% every single day if that's what you need from me. But you just have to understand that I am giving all of it to you and relying 100% on myself to manifest what I need, to bring it in, and that has to happen through spirit. I just got to the point where it was the only thing that made sense. So I think for me, it was calling my own bluff. Like
Mm,
really like, okay, you say you're going to do it, then we're going to do it.
mhm,
And
mhm.
there's no halfway about getting in your car with everything that you own, driving to an Airbnb in a city where you know one person and saying, okay, here I am. Where am I going to live? Let's go. And it just happened.
Yeah, that's it. So it's brilliant. So in alignment. I love your story, you know, of how you've sort of had to overcome all of those adversities to get to this place of complete self-realization and faith. Not only in your higher self, but in your spiritual team. Now, you talk a lot about your higher self connection, you know, but you haven't spoken much about your connection to the Galactic Federation and the the realms and the dimensions beyond. Could you could you start elaborating a little bit more about the relationship that you have with your star family as well, and how they've been pivotal maybe in this whole journey that you've been on?
It's interesting because they have not been, I mean, they've consistently been present, but in terms of our communication, that has been sporadic. So I've always had the sense that they're here, right? They're there, they're wherever that is, right? Where are they? They're here. Where's here? It's there, right? It's this sort of semantic thing that can make you a little crazy. Um, but they have been with me, since the beginning. And a lot of this is me being aware of that in hindsight. But over the years, a couple of groups of beings have popped in and offered teachings or offered a healing modality or offered a course or a workshop. I think on my YouTube channel, there's a Arcturian light body meditation, which the Arcturians just showed up one day and were like, "Hey, we have this. Are you interested?" I was like, "Okay, sure." Um, so they've kind of popped in and out, and my guides, the lighted ones, they are a group of galactic beings that I have a very close relationship with them, obviously, and came to realize over the years that we're a council of 13 and I'm just number 13 and I'm the one who drew the short straw to come into the physical body this time. So we're all part of the same crew. I'm just the one down here. So they've been very, very close off and on. And that's another thing that I'm very, very aware of is their presence here is really moving to the forefront. And I think actually I know that a lot of the adjustments and the acclimating that I'm doing since I've been here is in service of that galactic connection. I think that's going to become a much bigger part of my work because when I say that I make the woo-woo real, it's time to make the magical normal again. Like it's time to make the mystical mundane again. Like this idea that we humans are like the low man on the totem pole and we're just like the bad part of the neighborhood. The earth is where you don't go after dark. That's a fallacy. We are magical, incredible beings. To be a human, especially at this time in our history, is something that so many beings wanted to participate in. So many beings wanted to be a part of it. And the only beings that are here incarnated right now are ones that were chosen or that were volunteered. So it's not an accident that any humans that are incarnated right now are here. So I really do think that a lot of my work is going to be partnering with my galactic friends to normalize intergalactic friendships, right? Like we used to have pen pals back in the day, right? I had a pen pal in Perth actually, and we used to write letters and it would take a couple of weeks to go back and forth, and that was just really exciting. Well, why can't I have a Pleiadian pen pal? Why can't I have an Andromedan pen pal? So I think for me, they knew, obviously, from their perspective, they can see more, I think, coherently than perhaps I could. They knew I wasn't ready for that. So it's been slow little drips, slowly feeding me, getting me accustomed to it and used to it. And I think it's only a matter of time before I have stories of in-person meetings to share with people. I really do think that's what's coming next. And I think that a large part of my work is going to be normalizing that for other people.
Mm. Yeah, I totally 100% agree. I think that's, what I can see, how I can see your work evolving as well, because wait, look where you are, first and foremost, it's a galactic hotspot, isn't it? It's a
Yeah.
portal. And of course, you're right in the way you're describing that they give you just as much as you're ready, and it's slowly, from the very first, sort of realization that your soul has come in from of what multiple different galaxies, constellations, and timelines, and even alternate universes, and to recognize that sense that time, isn't linear, that you are multidimensional, and to then fully like integrate that and then anchor it. And once you've done that, you become an open vessel for that communication to come through. So it's like this. There's no accident. I feel that you're in Sedona, and I feel like the next wave of your work is going to it's going to be very much needed, because from what we're hearing from all different sources, not only externally but internally, there's a very real sense of the union between those different galactic races or star nations coming together to unite humanity at this time, and it's not about them rescuing us or anything like that. Sasha Stone said to me the other day that, humans are doing a really good job, and maybe it's the galactics that weren't ready.
Yeah,
We
that's a
we
good
should
point.
never put ourselves down. We are sovereign beings after all, and a lot of them are watching us at this time in awe. Thinking, or just curious about how we're going to be able to navigate the Earth as it goes through this huge split.
Yeah.
So being, a vessel or a channel for that, it seems very much in alignment with what you've been doing, not only personally, but within the work that you're doing. When you say like physically, having interactions with them, like what do you mean? Like, do you see them presenting themselves, in a physical form, like that, or do you see it more of meditative interactions?
I think it will probably begin with, telepathic connection, meditative internal connection, probably very similar to when Archangel Michael I first connected with, and then my team after that. But I think ultimately, I would say probably within the next 24 months, we're going to start seeing more and more people, myself included, saying, yeah, I woke up one morning and there was just a thing. In the middle of the night, I just had a sense and I went into the living room and there they were. Like, I think it's going to be that kind of a thing. Um, and I just think that so much of the work that I have done through my practice has been preparing people for that, because until you are rooted within yourself and your own agency and sovereignty and authority as an emissary of the divine, you need to have that really strong, deeply ingrained connection, because the minute that, a blue being pops into form out of nowhere, or the orb floats into your window and then, metamorphosizes into some, if you're not connected very clearly to your own sense of self, that is going to send you spinning and spiraling way, way out. So I think that what I'm really seeing more and more, and especially the component of my work that's all about your emotional resonance, that is the thing that's going to make it or break it. Like, what is your vibe? What is your frequency? What is your flavor? If you are in a really crunchy, angry, dark, negative, no being, not even a human wants to engage with that. Like, why aren't the Pleiadians landing? Well, because you're so angry and bitter. Like, your human friends don't even want to hang out with you. Why on earth do you think a galactic being would? Like, you know what I mean? Like, until you can claim the truth of who you are and believe it, you're not going to get invited into these otherworldly spaces, because you're just not ready. It's not that you're bad and that you can't have it and that you don't deserve it. It's that you are the one that is responsible for your well-being. You are the one that is accountable for what you are living and what you have created. So until you master that, That's basic human 101. So you're certainly not going to go to the advanced level until you have the 100 level course. It's like your example of moving to France. You're not going to speak conversational fluent French until you have the basics, right? And you're not going to be thrown in, I mean, maybe you will, but you're not going to expect to sit down in a dinner party and have a fluent conversation with someone who doesn't speak English, not for a while anyway. So I think that it's really about preparing ourselves to be integrated into a much larger sense of community. And there's a lot of people psychologically who are not ready for that.
Yep, you're absolutely
And
right.
if we think this is what my guides have been saying a lot lately, they said, if you think the political scandals have been pulling up people by their ankles, wait until the truth about religion comes out. My God, there are a whole lot of people in store for a really, really volatile awakening when the truth about religion starts to come out. I have a lot of empathy for people who put so much faith in their organized religion because it's getting ricketier and ricketier, and it's gonna just collapse in the next few years. And so those people who have no sense of self beyond what their church tells them, you have to construct something else. You have to find something else, and that something else is you.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all unfolds, isn't it? Because, it's like the illusion is breaking down, the whole construct, it's
Mhm.
just going to be amazing to be able to experience, the truth though. I think that's what we've all been denied for so long. Um, people like Freddie Silver, amazing at bringing the truth back into the zeitgeist. And I think that, the work that you're doing and that I'm doing, it's all absolutely, essential in helping people to see truly beyond the veil and step up into your sovereignty, which is really the key word, isn't it? That you keep hearing everywhere. It's about claiming your sovereign power as that's where the truth resides.
Yeah.
If
And
you
it's
have
the
a
beginning and ending of everything.
Yeah, I mean, what would your message be then for people watching this who may be stuck in the old paradigm, the old illusionary world? Like, how would you guide them on accepting a new version of reality?
I think, I'm quite a realist when it comes to my approach. So I think what I always want, and it's always about compassion and empathy being the foundation, but it's also about objective truth. If you want your life to change, you're gonna have to give up the old ways. The price of the new life is the old one. And the version of you that you imagine a year from now in a relationship, in a job, with money or health or whatever the thing is that you so deeply desire, the version of you that is dreaming about that is not the version of you that's going to live that. So be willing to let go of yourself. Be willing, which sounds antithetical to claiming your sovereignty, but again, who you really are is indelible, is infinite and eternal. It will never change or go away. It's who you had to become that needs to change. It's dropping the illusion. It's letting go of the defense mechanisms. It's understanding that what we call a personality is, for the most part, just a bunch of really, really well-honed coping mechanisms that we just forgot to discard. I think most humans, until they have an awakening moment, they're just living in survival mode. They're living according to a set of rules and standards that they didn't have a hand in creating. They just inherited them or adopted them. So I will challenge people to really begin to ask themselves, who decided that this was your life? Who decided that who you are is who you are? Is it true for you? Do you want to be where you are? Do you want the life that you have? Do you feel happy and fulfilled and comfortable? And if the answer to any of that is no, then that's the beginning. It doesn't get easier at first. It gets a lot harder at first. A spiritual awakening is terrifying. I have this program called Awakening School, which I'm doing my second installment of this month, starting in September, or next month, starting in September. And it's a 13-week course where basically we're just going through a different module every week, and I'm arming them with tools and insights and teachings to help them navigate their life. I know for myself, when I first went through my awakening, I thought, oh, well, I'll have my awakening, I'll fall apart, then I'll piece myself back together, and then off I'll trot, and my life will just be. No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. It completely changes everything. How you see yourself, what you're available for, what you're saying yes to, what you're saying no to, what you want to invest yourself in, what you want to just completely eradicate from your life altogether. So it can't stay the same. It has to change. So let it. My favorite saying is you don't have control. You only have anxiety about the things you want to control. So the idea that you're in control of anything is a farce. It's an illusion. You're not. None of us are. It could end like that tomorrow for all of us, for any of us. So I think it's about just getting really, really honest with yourself about if the things that you say you want, you truly want, why aren't you doing them? Why aren't you going for them? And if the things you do are anathema or the opposite of what you want, then why do you keep doing those things? Like it's very, very simple. If you say no when you wanted to say yes, you're going to be unhappy and disappointed, and you're the one that created that disappointment. So the sooner that people can take accountability for their entire life, full stop, the faster it happens. But speaking from experience, I wanted anybody and anybody else to be responsible for my life. And trust me, I tried. But it's always me. It always
Yeah.
comes back to me. So if someone's listening to this and they're uncertain or afraid, what do you have to lose? If you're already unhappy, what are you losing? Your misery? What are you losing? The life that you don't like, the relationship that you're bored with, the job that you cry in the shower before you go to work because you hate it so much? That's what you're afraid of losing? Don't be. You just have to do it. Like, I wish that there was another way, some magical sage wisdom that I could offer people. But at some point, you're just going to have to get up off your ass and do it. The universe doesn't respond to what you want. The universe responds to how you act and what you vibrate and what you emanate.
Mm, beautiful. Well, you really have filled us all with a whole lot of wonderful wisdom and grace today. Amar, you have. It's great to to hear you speaking and because you do make it all very simple for everybody. And that's really the crux of it. It doesn't have to be hard, does it? It just has to be actionable, and just say yes and turn up. Just get cracking. If you're miserable,
Yes.
get on with it.
Just be honest. And you can show up miserable. Spirit doesn't care. This whole fake love and light, plaster on a smile. Spirit doesn't care if you're angry. Spirit just wants you to be honest. So if you show up and you say, I'm angry, I'm hungry, I'm confused, and I'm tired, but I'm here, that's enough. I promise you. The only two things you need to be successful in your spiritual endeavors are willingness and curiosity. That's it. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to like it. You don't have to be high vibe all the time. You can just show up grumpy and sideways and, hungry, and you're still going to be light years ahead of somebody who's faking it. So just be real and honest. That's it. One of my favorite sayings, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Yeah, I love that.
So until you do something different, you're not going to get something different.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, then. So, for all of the listeners, if today's conversation has resonated with you, where can people find you, Amar?
They can find me on YouTube at Amar Energy. Instagram is Amar Energy. TikTok is Amar.energy, I believe. I'm still a bit of a noob at TikTok. And then my website, Amar.energy, is where they can find me if they want to book a session, if they want to read about my courses and workshops. Awakening School is coming up at the end of September. September 21st is when we're launching. So they can read all about that on a multitude of platforms.
Oh, that's so good. I love hearing all of this, and I'll make sure that I publish this uh, video before then as well, so people get the chance to be able to
Oh,
enroll
awesome.
who are watching, who feel really drawn to the work that you're doing, which is fantastic. So yeah, please make sure you do that if you're watching. Make sure you subscribe to Amar's YouTube, especially because there's so many fascinating videos on there. It's really, really enjoyable to watch.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to continue, watching how things unfurl for you with ease and grace over the next, period of time. And it'd be great to have you back on the show, sort of later on down the track when, you started having these intergalactic connections and possibly channelings or whatever, however it sort of unfolds for you. Be really nice to
Yeah, I would love
continue
that.
the conversations if you'd be
Yeah, I would
interested.
love that. And then we could see how many of my prescient knowings actually came true. Who knows? You might find me in the exact same place, still waiting 6 months from now, although I doubt it.
Yeah, still sitting there hangry.
Yeah. Exactly. But I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. You're in
Yeah.
Sedona and you're hangry. But it's yeah. Remember, everybody who's watching, that the cosmos is always waiting for your harmony. So until next time, just keep following the stars within. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye for now.